The highly anticipated trial of hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is nearing the end. He's accused of sex trafficking by force, transportation to engage in prostitution, and racketeering conspiracy last year, and later faced 2 additional superseding indictments, to all of which Combs has pleaded not guilty. Joining us now to discuss what comes next, President of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Neama Rahmani. Thank you so much for joining us. So first, the prosecution actually amended some of their charges. Explain, how does that work? What does that mean in your opinion? Do they not have as strong of a case than initially thought?
They have a very strong case, and a lot of people were reporting that charges were dropped, but really it was just clarification for the jurors. And this is what happened. So for racketeering, you need predicate acts. So we've talked about them, right? Drug trafficking, sex trafficking, bribery, extortion, and arson. And all the prosecution did is they said, we are no longer pursuing legal theories for attempted kidnapping or attempted arson. And the reason we're not doing that is because the kidnapping was completed. Cassie Ventura was kidnapped. Capricorn Clark was kidnapped when she was brought to an office several days in a row and made to take a lie detector test. So we're still going to pursue those underlying predicate acts. They're called RICO predicates, but as completed acts, not attempted acts. The same thing with sex trafficking. The government said that we are no longer pursuing an aiding and abetting theory because we think Diddy was the principal. He was the one that trafficked the victims, not that he aided and abetted others to do so.
The defense tried to minimize the infamous 2016 Los Angeles hotel beating of Ventura, implying it was an argument over Combs' cell phone. How could that change deliberations moving forward?
Well, the video is so powerful, and that's why the prosecution opened their case with it. It was even a big discussion during jury selection because the video doesn't lie. People can lie. And let's not forget, Diddy denied everything after Cassie filed her lawsuit in November 2023, after his homes in Los Angeles and Miami were raided in March of 2024. Only when CNN got a copy of that video in May of last year did Combs finally issue that apology. So of course the defense is trying to minimize it. Today, Mark Agnifilo said Combs was under some drug-induced psychosis, essentially, and this is not who he is, and it was an argument over a cell phone. Obviously, they are going to have some sort of explanation for it. It was not a good one, in my opinion.
The defense also called the sex trafficking charges the lowest hanging fruit. Why is that?
Well, the sex trafficking charges are probably the most difficult for the prosecution to prove, and this is why. There are messages, text and email, and social media posts by the victims. We're talking about Cassie Ventura, Mia, and Jane that show love and affirmation for Sean Diddy Combs. Now, I think that's part of the psychology of abuse, but if you look at those messages and even the freak-off videos themselves, there's a reason the defense kept playing them almost for an hour. Obviously, we couldn't see them, but I believe those videos seem to show the victims as enjoying themselves sexually and potentially as willing participants in the freak-off. So we know that consent is a defense to sex trafficking. The government has to prove force, fraud, or coercion. So the defense is banking on the fact that those messages and those videos show consent and they can get reasonable doubt, at least on the sex trafficking charges.
I think many thought that this was a pretty swift trial. We'll see what that means for the verdict, if it can be reached as quickly. Neama Rahmani, thank you for joining us tonight on the National News Desk.
Of course. Thanks for having me, as always. Appreciate it.